Discover the touching words of a female CEO that transformed a janitor's life on a blind date. Maria's knees cracked as she knelt to scrub the floor of a high-rise office, the pungent scent of cleaner stinging her nostrils. Barely 40, each day she felt the weight of fatigue solidify in her bones, a relentless cycle of night shifts, worrying about Ethan. Her son, bright but troubled, struggled to find his footing in a world that felt increasingly hostile. As she wiped away the remnants of corporate meetings, visions of a better life for Ethan flickered through her mind, a spark of hope buried beneath layers of exhaustion and doubt. Her thoughts spiraled. She couldn't shake the nagging sensation that she was just a janitor, defined by floors she scrubbed and offices she cleaned. Out there, Sarah, the CEO of this imposing company, was likely at a lavish dinner, brimming with potential, power, and opportunity. Maria scolded herself for even imagining a connection that could bridge the gulf between their worlds. She felt small. She felt invisible. That night, pure exhaustion guided her home, where Ethan lay sprawled on the couch, drowning in textbooks and playlists, craving validation that Maria, too, sought. As she tucked him in, unshed tears pricked her eyes, painfully aware of how tired they both were. Why was life so unfair? Every human had dreams, didn't they? Maria yearned for moments that allowed her to breathe beyond responsibilities, yet every moment felt stolen. Before one long shift began, a blunder in reservations brought Sarah to the diner where Maria unknowingly sat. The juxtaposition was jarring, the polished CEO adorned in tailored suits across from the weary janitor whose uniform spoke of struggle. Instinctively, Maria fought to collect her chaos into a facade of composure. As the waitress took their orders, an unexpected charge crackled in the air. A shared laugh came too easily, breaking tension, but Maria's heart raced. She could sense Sarah's burden of expectations. Questions bubbled up. Who was she in this space? Did she even belong at the same table as a woman of Sarah's caliber? Still, beneath the chatter about company struggles and relentless schedules, they found common ground: dreams of family, aspirations shrouded in shadows of reality. The conversation, rich and vibrant, blurred the lines of their different worlds. Time slipped through their fingers like so many broken dreams. But just as anticipation began to build, Sarah's phone buzzed violently, pulling her back into the chaos. A scandal erupted, news that threatened to tarnish her career. The knowledge that the ripple could drag Maria in with it made her heart lurch. She felt small again, concrete security collapsing into dust. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determination brewing inside her, Maria considered the deeper implications of her words. She proposed outreach initiatives to mend the chasm between company success and the lives behind it. Each sentence felt charged with adrenaline, the injustices she'd lived through spilling into the call for change that could redefine both their lives. Could Sarah see her beyond the mop and bucket? But doubt flickered, weaving through their discussion like a malevolent ghost. Time slipped through their grasp, laden with unspoken words and unresolved tensions. Maria's hands twitched as she pondered, was she willing to risk everything and stand up to a world designed to keep her down? Would Sarah recognize her worth before it was too late? The air thickened, unyielding, awaiting the next move while time silently ticked away. Maria shifted in her seat, a palpable tension thrumming in the space between her and Sarah. The momentary thrill of their unexpected connection couldn't drown out the growing anxiety knotting her stomach. How had a simple dinner turned into an earnest confrontation with her dreams? She inhaled deeply, trying to calm the storm brewing within her. Maria. Sarah's voice broke through her thoughts, laced with uncertainty and concern. This is an unprecedented situation for me. I don't want you to feel pressured. Pressure? Maria scoffed lightly, masking the frustration swelling inside. You have no idea what pressure is. I spend my nights mopping floors so my son can have a shot at a better life. Her words slipped out, raw and immediate, as if they had been grappling for escape. As shock flitted across Sarah's face, Maria felt a rush of vulnerability. But beneath it also flickered her determination. If she merely sat here, trailing in the wake of Sarah's world, she would remain invisible. Perhaps it was time to define her own place. Look, Maria steadied herself, posture shifting as she leaned forward. There are stories hidden in our struggle, the ones no one acknowledges. I see it every night when I clean, the lives behind the glass windows, the sacrifices. I have ideas, initiatives that could benefit people like me. What do you mean? Sarah's eyes sparkled with intrigue, momentarily diverting attention from her own turmoil. Maria hesitated, heart pounding against her ribcage. Could she actually propose something that challenged the status quo, that made Sarah listen? Her hands clasped tightly together. I think the company could bridge the gap between privilege and the daily grind we experience out there. She gestured beyond the building loss, by creating genuine outreach programs. Maybe we could even turn employee initiatives into opportunities to uplift the communities where your employees live. As she spoke, a warmth ignited within Maria, threading a connection with Sarah that felt almost tangible. The simple act of articulating her vision allowed her to shed layers of self-doubt. Outreach programs could empower my community, Maria continued, gaining momentum. Every clean floor could symbolize hope. We're not just janitors, we're resilient fighters for families that need support. Maria made eye contact, a bold gaze demanding recognition. Moments stretched into an intense silence that suffocated her, each tick of the clock amplifying doubt, but she pressed on, hoping Sarah would see the urgency of her words. The CEO leaned back, her brow furrowing in thought. I see what you're saying, but there are many variables to consider. It's complicated. Complicated? Maria clamped down on frustration. Hadn't her life been complicated? She remembered the countless nights spent alone with Ethan, both of them weary from world's indifference. Complexity lay at the heart of every hardship and triumph. Life is complicated for many of us, Maria challenged with quiet intensity. But the greatest victories stem from understanding those complexities. Partnership with your company could lead to tangible change in lives and in hearts. A glint of something recognition, maybe sparked in Sarah's eyes. She shifted, thoughts visibly churning. This was it, this was the moment that determined if Maria's life could take on one of the many trajectories floating precariously in her mind. But then, as abruptly as the realization emerged, Sarah's phone buzzed again, a stark reminder of her dual existence. We'll need to reevaluate these initiatives. Let me think about them, Maria. The shift in tone was subtle, but unmistakably transactional. No. Maria's voice cracked like a whip, the weight of her decision landing heavily between them. I can't let this go. If you walk away now, I'm not sure when I will get the chance to speak my mind again. The atmosphere pulsed, anticipation mounting. Sarah, the polished, powerful CEO, suddenly looked less certain. Maria's heart raced with the awareness of standing on a precipice. One step further could either lead her toward transformative action or tumble her into the depths of insignificance again. With the words hanging in the air, Maria knew that the outcome of this confrontation, her confrontation, would uncover more than mere opportunities. It would unravel truths about her own worth and what she could achieve, not just for herself but for others like her. And as Sarah's silence stretched uncomfortably, Maria understood one thing: whether she was ready or not, the moment had come to face whatever came next. The silence stretched tautly across the table, each second amplifying Maria's resolve while the tremor of nerves surged beneath her skin. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken words and potential outcomes. Maria's instinct whispered that this was a pivotal juncture not only for her career but for her identity itself. She couldn't let it slip away. But how far could she push before she overwhelmed Sarah completely? Maria, Sarah finally spoke, her voice soft yet laced with authority. Your passion is clear, but implementing outreach on a grand scale can't be done overnight. It's more than just talk. The shift in Sarah's tone felt almost like a challenge. Maria steadied herself, her emotional pulse quickening in response. She had laid her truth bare, now, she needed to show that depth went beyond mere rhetoric. "I know it won't be easy," Maria countered, gathering her thoughts into a succinct arrow. "But look where we are. Every day, I see people who are ready to invest in their futures if given the chance. What if your company offered workshops, skill development, or mentorship? We could transform lives incrementally." Maria's mind churned with ideas, unspooling from the reservoir of experience she had accumulated over years of scraping by. Skill-building sessions. Financial literacy programs. The thoughts flowed, charged with the urgency of her lived experiences. She went on, "Imagine setting up a platform for your employees to mentor those in my community. They can share skills that create real change. Their success could resonate throughout families like mine, enlightening kids to possibilities beyond what they see now." As Maria spoke, she caught Sarah's gaze drifting towards the window, beyond the raindrop-speckled glass. It was an odd moment of clarity for Maria. She sensed the discomfort in Sarah's contemplation but also the flicker of something opening. "Maria, do you realize what you're proposing? It's not just a lofty idea. It may disrupt the established structure of our corporate image." Sarah's voice was cautious, and Maria could hear the internal struggle echoing within it. "We have protocols entrap vision," Maria asserted, emboldened. "Are we the sum of our processes or the impact we create? Your position offers an unparalleled opportunity to spark change." Each word felt like a brushstroke painting a clearer picture of her desires and hopes. With every passing second, Maria felt her fears transform into fervent determination. She was not just a janitor with a wish for something better, she was an agent of change, prepared to navigate the complexities that lay ahead. Sarah's expression softened, a mixture of contemplation and recognition swirling in her eyes. "I'm not sure it's that simple," she murmured, but the hesitance in her voice hinted at an openness Maria hadn't anticipated. "Nothing ever is," Maria replied, feeling a surge of urgency driving her forward. "But constrained by those complexities, we could be the catalyst for something invaluable, and you, Sarah, could lead the charge." There was a pause, a charged labyrinth of thoughts dancing between them. Sarah ran her fingers through her hair, and in that brief moment, her mask of professional detachment cracked, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. "Then let us say I want to explore this," Sarah said, her voice steadying. "It will require a lot of support. I need to translate this idea into something convincing for my board. And you'll need to be involved every step of the way." The implication of that ask hung thick in the air. Maria's heart raced again, caught between exhilaration and trepidation. Being instrumental in a venture backed by Sarah's influence meant entering a world that felt foreign yet tantalizingly close. Could she really navigate those waters, both the strategic and the personal ambition? "I'll do whatever it takes," Maria pledged, her voice steady. "Okay," Sarah replied, leaning in, her tone shifting to one of direct engagement. "Then let us think about next steps." As the conversation unfolded, Maria sensed the horizon of her life expanding. This was a leap into the unknown, one filled with promise but laced with the apprehension of failures past and insecurities grounded deep. But as fear melted into purpose, one thought nested within her mind: could she bridge this new reality with her own background, her identity woven through the fabric of her aspirations? And just as confidently as she began, Mrs. Braun's phone buzzed again. This time, it felt like a warning bell for Maria's burgeoning ambition. The moment of truth had come, and she could already see the shadows of past insecurities looming ahead, both the personal doubts and the stark corporate obstacles waiting to challenge her resolve. What was she truly prepared to sacrifice for this dream? The opportunity buzzed in the air between Maria and Sarah, a palpable electricity that granted Maria unexpected strength. Yet, as exhilarating as the prospect appeared, doubt wormed its way into her thoughts. How could she translate her lived experience into a tangible proposal that would resonate with the board's rigid expectations? Each ambition harbored not just excitement but the looming specter of failure. In the days that followed, Maria immersed herself in her routine with renewed vigor, balancing her responsibilities while outlining the framework for her proposal. After scrubbing the floors, her mind would race with ideas. She envisioned community-led workshops, employee mentoring sessions, and tailored financial education practical strategies aimed at nurturing potential within underserved demographics. But uncertainty crept in, gnawing at her confidence. What if her ideas fell flat? What if Sarah's initial support wavered in front of the imposing boardroom? One afternoon, as Maria mopped the hallway, she caught a glimpse of herself in the window. "You're more than a janitor," she whispered to her reflection. "You have something vital to offer." That inner dialogue fired an urge within her. It wasn't simply about convincing a board, it was about carving her place in a system largely defined by privilege. Armed with sketches of her proposal, Maria approached Sarah one Friday afternoon. The sunlight filtered through the office window, casting a warm glow that softened the stark professionalism of the room. "I've started laying out the specifics," she began, handing Sarah a list of ideas adorned with her personal insights and community understanding. Sarah scanned the pages, pausing to nod every few moments. "This is solid, Maria. Very resourceful." Praise surged through Maria, settling her nerves a fraction, though she remained uneasy about feedback from the higher-ups. "What do you think will resonate?" Maria asked, and the vulnerability in her voice was unmistakable. She needed validation but feared the harsh realities of corporate expectations. "The board likes numbers, statistics. They need to understand the financial motives behind any program," Sarah answered, leaning back in her chair as her brow knit in contemplation. Despite her encouragement, Maria felt a familiar constriction in her chest. The chasm between her hopes and the steep climb ahead manifested in a worried sigh. "Then how do I frame it?" "I'm not a businesswoman," Maria admitted, her pulse quickening. "How can I convey the heart of this initiative without losing its essence in a sea of jargon?" "Your story is powerful. Don't be afraid to lead with it," Sarah suggested. "Tell them what you witness every day. The stakeholders will connect to authentic experiences." Determination surged within Maria as Sarah's words resonated. This was no longer merely a professional encounter, it was a platform for truth she had buried under layers of doubt. "I can do that," Maria affirmed, steeling her resolve. She could articulate the struggles of her community, using the statistics only to bolster her narrative. With each day that passed, Maria compiled her presentation, meticulous and heartfelt. She practiced in front of the mirror, refining her pitch and weaving in personal anecdotes. Yet, as the board meeting loomed closer, the familiar patterns of self-doubt resurfaced. What if they dismissed her? What if they couldn't see beyond the numbers? The night before the meeting, sleep eluded her as she paced her small apartment, glancing at the calendar each minute. An urgent need to affirm her worth clashed with a gnawing fear. Was she truly ready? A flicker of imagined rejection sent shivers down her spine, and for a fleeting moment, Maria considered abandoning the plan altogether. But she remembered the glimmer of possibility she had seen in her reflection that day, the conviction she felt when she spoke to Sarah. "I owe it to myself to try," Maria whispered defiantly into the silence. The next morning, she donned her best pair of shoes, a faded reminder of the journey she had taken to reach this moment. As she stood before the imposing boardroom door, anticipation and anxiety coiling in her stomach, she realized she was ready not just to speak, but to seize her destiny. With a deep breath, Maria pushed the door open, stepping into the room where her future awaited. It was time for her voice to be heard. What awaited her on the other side would determine the course of her ambitions and perhaps reveal the prodigious strength she had yet to fully recognize in herself. The boardroom buzzed with the sound of low conversations, all eyes drawn to her as Maria stepped inside. The harsh glare of fluorescent lights exposed every wrinkle of vulnerability, but she refused to let them bind her. Each figure seated around the long oak table carried an air of authority that momentarily threatened to engulf her in self-doubt. Yet, within that sinking feeling, a flicker of her newfound determination ignited. "Thank you for coming today," Maria began, forcing steadiness into her voice. The words, simple yet profound, broke the anticipatory silence. I'm Maria, and I'm here to share something that matters deeply to me and hopefully to you. Her heart pounded, and she abandoned her prepared notes momentarily to focus on her story, the story that had shaped her every day. With each sentence, she painted vivid images of the struggles faced by those in her community, the obstacles so often overlooked by the people in this room. Her voice, at first tremulous, grew stronger as she painted the picture of resilience, the dreams held tightly by those grappling with their realities. Every day, I sweep floors and wipe down surfaces, but what I see is so much more than a job. I witness potential, she said, a pulse of energy surging through her as she spoke. Each time I come to work, I think of the kids in my neighborhood who don't get the chances we do. I think of how simple mentorship and education can transform lives. Maria's sincerity radiated through the boardroom. She shifted energetically from personal anecdotes about her interactions with families to actionable steps in her proposal, forging a connection. She mentioned specific workshops, emphasizing tangible ways the organization could invest in education, recruiting leaders from various departments to mentor local youth, and creating accessible financial literacy programs. Glances exchanged around the table began to shift, some raised brows, others leaning forward. She sensed the scrutiny dissolve slightly into intrigue, but then, one voice pierced the momentary optimism, not just skeptical, but dismissive. This is all very uplifting, Maria, but do you have figures to back this? We need to see a return on investment. The question pricked at her confidence. It was that moment of vulnerability, the stark reminder of the corporate world's unyielding focus on numbers. Maria felt the ground shift beneath her. The world of spreadsheets and profit margins lurked around every corner, threatening to overshadow her constellation of dreams, yet within her erupted a surge of resolve. Of course, I understand the importance of numbers, she replied, feeling the swell of her strength. But let us not forget that behind every number is a story, the story of lives improved, families uplifted. You have the power to change the fabric of our society through investment, not just in terms of profit but in human potential. The boardroom remained hushed. Each member absorbed the magnitude of her words, and Maria recognized the shift. Not all was cynicism. Here lay genuine consideration, a recognition of her authenticity that rendered their indecipherable expressions to reveal layers of curiosity emerging within them. With her proposal set beautifully against the backdrop of her lingering memories, Maria felt the transcendence of the moment. She was more than a janitor, she had become a voice of possibility. As she concluded her presentation, a wave of adrenaline washed over her, yet beneath it lay a new foundation of self-worth. The ideas had been shared, but now what remained was their reception. Would they invest in her? Will she find a way to continuously engage this audience beyond mere numbers? Maria's heart quickened again. She had taken this first colossal leap. Now, she braced herself for the answer that could define her next steps. What would they decide? Would they recognize the potential she presented or retreat into their numbers? The tension hung thickly in the air, awaiting the crucial verdict on a dream kindled through her courage and resilience. The silence that followed her presentation felt suffocating. Maria's heart raced, the weight of anticipation flooding her senses as a single voice, smooth and commanding, broke the stillness. Maria, what you've presented is undoubtedly compelling. However, let us talk specifics. Can you provide us with some projections? The tone was matter-of-fact, almost mechanical, rendering her earlier emotional investment into her proposal irrelevant. The breath she held escaped her lips, drifting into the sterile boardroom atmosphere. Doubt threatened to seep back in. Did she miss the mark? Had she focused too much on emotional appeal and too little on the matters that really counted? Yes, Maria replied, steadier than she felt. I can outline a follow-up that includes cost analyses and projected outcomes. However, beneath the surface confidence, the fear of inadequacy writhed. She had never stood in front of a room filled with so many decision-makers. What if those numbers were on a level she couldn't comprehend? In that moment, her instinct whispered that this wasn't just about numbers. They needed to understand the qualitative impact as much as the quantitative. Let us talk about the mentorship aspect, I envision mentorship programs that not only enhance individual capacities but will also position our company as a leader in corporate responsibility," she added, enthused by a newfound understanding of her stance. One of the executives leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Interesting angle, but how precisely will this uplift your community? I want to understand the connection between mentorship and company values." His skeptic's gaze wasn't just about dismissing her ideas, it was a challenge to define the dream she had presented. In that moment, Maria felt the urge to recoil but instead took a step forward. Every person in this room has been mentored or supported at some juncture. Think about how those relationships shaped your career paths, youthful ambitions nurtured into professional expertise. If we invest in mentoring the children from my community, we don't just change their futures, we also create a more invested, skilled future workforce. It doesn't just help them, it helps us all. She could feel a shift in the undercurrents of the room. A flicker of consideration ignited, but she needed more: a powerful story, statistics, and results. She envisioned late nights poring over figures and visiting community centers. Returning to her desk after the meeting, determination surged within her. A plan began taking shape, one blending actionable steps with heartfelt intention. Weeks passed as her life regained its rhythm. Each morning, she woke earlier, scribbling ideas in a notebook, constructing bridges between theory and practice. Despite her ongoing role as a janitor, she was surprisingly transforming her background into a narrative that resonated with authenticity. With every conversation she had, every project she proposed to senior staff, a deeper understanding dawned. Her story and her role meant more than just their defined limits. Her colleagues slowly began to see her not as a janitor but as a catalyst for change. Even during moments of laughter in the break room or small exchanges with her peers, she noticed subtle shifts in their perceptions of her. It was as if her goals began to weave a common thread, creating a network of support and acknowledgement. Undeterred, she spent weekends reaching out to local organizations, building connections, and seeking mentorship for the children she so passionately advocated for. Each phone call, each meeting sparked additional inspiration. A new resolve nestled firmly within her. As she prepared for her next meeting with the board, all her hard work culminated in one clear thought: she was ready. That evening, Maria sat in front of a mirror, rehearsing her lines, the echo of voices from the past buzzing around her. And then, in the quiet, she clenched her fists. This was her moment. What lay ahead was uncertain but thrilling. The meeting was set, and with a calculated heart, she would not just present perceived obstacles but confront the board with the full spectrum of her vision. As the clock struck the hour of her appointment, Maria took a deep breath, knowing she was primed for the confrontation that awaited. Would this be another chance to prove her worth, or would doubt once again seek to undermine her resolve? The boardroom buzzed with energy, the air thick with the blend of anticipation and tension. Maria squared her shoulders and stepped into the space, her heels whispering against the polished floor. As she faced the executives, their expressions reflected a mixture of power dynamics, their attention divided between her presence and the prospect of her proposal. She focused on the lead executive, whose skepticism had initially shaken her resolve. "Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present revised projections for the mentorship program," she began, her voice unwavering. Each word she spoke was a declaration of her commitment not just to the program but to herself as a catalyst for change. The initial silence of the room felt different this time. Maria had prepared meticulously, filled with her ideas and research, blending quantitative data seamlessly with personal anecdotes. She had engaged in extensive research, obtaining industry benchmarks and success stories from communities that implemented similar programs. When she spoke of the potential economic uplift, she did so with the weight of hard statistics. "In this proposal, we project a 20% enhancement in workforce readiness for participants, correlating to increased retention rates and lower training costs for new hires. This creates a net benefit that extends beyond mere philanthropy. It becomes a strategic investment," Maria articulated. She felt the momentum shift, her comparison of the program to a nurturing force, akin to planting seeds in a garden, resonated. The idea was to cultivate future experts who could help the company flourish. Maria watched as heads nodded, the shift in perception palpable. But one voice remained curious, probing deeper. How will you ensure sustainability? It's one thing to start a program, it's another to keep it ongoing and effective, asked another executive, her brow furrowed. Maria had anticipated this challenge and met it head-on. The mentorship program will not only rely on company resources but will integrate partnerships with local businesses and educational institutions. Together, we will create a network of supporters committed to long-term success. This isn't just a self-contained initiative, it's about building a culture of growth that extends outward. As she spoke, she could feel her initial trepidation melt away, supplanted by the steady pulse of conviction. Her shoulders, once tense, relaxed, embodying the very strength she aimed to project. Every detail she had gathered established her credibility, but it was the passion in her voice that bridged the final gap. Moreover, Maria continued, the most vital aspect isn't just about outputs, it's about outcomes, the lives we will enrich. These are not statistics, they are young individuals who can benefit from our investment. And when we invest our time and resources, it reflects who we are as an organization. It's an embodiment of our values. The silence that followed was now ameliorated by the acknowledgement of her point. She could see sparks of recognition lighting the eyes of some executives, a contrast to the earlier skepticism. Doubt slipped from her fingers, replaced by a sense of purpose. But the meeting was far from over, the biggest challenge lay ahead. I appreciate your detailed insights, one executive said, leaning forward. However, what do you believe will be the biggest obstacle in this effort directly from the community you wish to engage? That's what I want to know. Maria paused, contemplating this point. She understood that the road ahead wouldn't just be paved with numbers or projections, it would require navigating real obstacles, the heavily ingrained perceptions of her community, the hesitancy to trust corporate initiatives, and the raw desire of individuals longing for genuine investment in their future. I foresee resistance, she admitted, her voice steady. It's a challenge we must embrace. To engage meaningfully, we must be present not just in this room, but in their lives. We need to show that our commitment goes beyond a mere program, it's about fostering relationships built on trust. At that moment, she recognized that this wasn't just about proposing a mentorship program, it was about stepping into the role as a leader willing to advocate for those who felt voiceless. This realization transformed her presentation into a personal mission. As their questions continued to flow, Maria felt an exhilarating mix of confidence and vulnerability harmonizing within her. She was no longer just a janitor advocating for change, she had blossomed into a leader with a vision grounded in authenticity and personal experience, but just as she felt the tide turning, a wave of doubt crested on the horizon, as another voice declared, "But how do we know this will work?" The challenge echoed in the recesses of her mind, and she understood it was a fork in her journey. Would she retreat in fear or charge forward with unyielding resolve? As the meeting continued, Maria felt the solid weight of her purpose beneath the pressure of expectation. Each question could be an opportunity or a pitfall. She prepared to confront that moment, knowing her next words could either fortify her vision or unravel it completely. Would she succumb to self-doubt, or would she rise to claim her place amongst her peers? The answer lay just ahead. The boardroom's atmosphere crackled with charged energy, yet the lingering question weighed heavily on Maria's mind. The executive who had voiced doubt wasn't just a skeptic in that moment, he embodied the countless external judgments she had faced throughout her journey. As she prepared to address the skepticism, she was acutely aware of the stakes not just for the proposal, but for her own self-belief. You question the potential success of a mentorship program. I would argue that the real question is, how can we afford not to try? Maria's tone was firm, but a tremor lingered beneath the surface. She could feel her heart racing, the urgency coursing through her veins. What we're cultivating is so much larger than this single initiative. It's about empowering the next generation to realize their potential, individuals who, when given the right support, can contribute not only to their communities but to our bottom line. As she locked eyes with the skeptical executive, an unexpected confidence ignited within her. It was a moment of clarity. She was no longer just advocating for her idea but also challenging the systemic barriers that had shaped perceptions, both hers and those she aimed to serve. I understand that change takes time, she continued, her voice gaining strength. But I promise you, what we will be building isn't a fleeting project. We will be sowing the seeds of resilience and adaptability within the workforce. With every step, we'll gather insight from mentors and ments alike. We'll adapt, evolve, and ensure our efficacy. The executives shifted in their seats, some with raised eyebrows, others leaning slightly forward. In this shifting dynamic, Maria recognized an opportunity to transform curiosity into acceptance. Yet, she had to confront the doubts festering within herself as a former janitor. Was she truly equipped to lead this charge? Maria took a slow, deliberate breath, focusing on her purpose. Behind every successful leader was a personal story, the hardship and struggle that shaped their journey. It was in acknowledging that pain that she found her voice. The atmosphere fluctuated between intense scrutiny and budding interest. In a world rife with skepticism, she explained, people often need more than just assurances, they need to see tangible proof that change is possible. The mentorship program is merely a vehicle to drive forward our collective promise to the future. But for me personally, it's a chance to honor the mentors who once believed in me, to give back what was given to me. In that moment, she realized a profound connection between her past and her present purpose. The question of whether she deserved to stand in that room, advocating for change, began to dissipate. This was not just about perceived authority but the authenticity of her experiences. Her words resonated, not just with the executives, but within Maria. Every ounce of her journey, every struggle with imposter syndrome had fueled her desire to break the cycle of limitation. A heavy silence settled, pregnant with unspoken thoughts. While the executives deliberated, Maria felt the pulse of her own resolve solidifying. She needed to ensure that she was not just promoting a program but embedding herself as a figure of influence who would be held accountable. How will you measure success? The first executive queried again, although this time, there was less skepticism and more genuine inquiry. This was her moment. To transcend being just an advocate for a program and to stake her identity on transformative success. We will measure our success not in numbers alone, but by the stories of change, she asserted, the clarity of her goal resonating deep within. If a single participant goes on to inspire another, we have succeeded. With their questioning winding down, Maria felt invigorated, touched by the shift from skepticism to consideration. She had harnessed not just her knowledge and determination but the essence of her journey and transformed it into a rallying cry for support. Yet just as she felt the hopeful horizon within reach, there was still a lingering doubt that she couldn't shake off. Would they truly see the expansive vision she laid out, or would the harsh realities of corporate politics overshadow her aspirations? Maria's heart raced as she prepared for the moment that could either solidify her newfound role as a leader or unravel it. She needed their acknowledgement. The meeting was a crucible of her resolve, and she understood that the final question was yet to be asked. Would she emerge not only as an advocate but as a beacon of genuine change? The answer loomed just ahead, and the pressure intensified as she braced herself for one last challenge, an unexpected twist, a final moment that could redefine everything. The silence hung like a curtain, thick and oppressive, as Maria awaited the response from the executives. Every second felt like an eternity, time stretching as doubt clawed at her subconscious. The gaze of each individual weighed heavily, noses poised over the edge of skepticism. Yet confrontation was no longer something to fear, it was the pathway to evolution. As deliberation ensued, weary expressions shifted to engaged ones, acknowledging her. A voice broke the spell, an unexpected ally from the far end of the table. I see potential in this concept, Maria, the CFO finally spoke, words laced with genuine consideration. A light flickered within her. It was the validation she desperately sought but had scarcely dared to believe would materialize. It's all about trust, Maria found herself saying. We need to cultivate an environment where mentorship flourishes, bridging the gap between our existing talent and those who hope to join our ranks. Trust transcends hierarchy, it nurtures meaningful dialogue. Her own confidence was beginning to spiral upward, buoyed by the initial spark. But she remembered she had faced self-doubt in the past, the fear of being less than others expected. She had spent years overcoming those hurdles and realized that if the notion of success was to take root, it started with authenticity. I stand before you not just as a proposal maker but as a testament to growth, she continued. Every mentor I had saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. This program is about harnessing that very spirit. The courage pouring from her was undeniable. She glanced at the skeptical executive, searching for recognition. A flicker in his eye gave her pause, and she pressed on. Imagine what it could mean for a recent high school graduate who lands an apprenticeship only because someone chose to believe in them. Their trajectory shifts completely. That's the change we are talking about, real lives transformed. Maria could feel the momentum build, her words reigniting the room with an ember of hope. Discussions were turning into thoughtful nods, but the biting fear of failure still lurked, teasing her with notions of inadequacy. What if they still didn't embrace her vision? Change also involves the willingness to evaluate our own biases, she said, mindful of the growing chatter. Our privilege often clouds our vision. How often do we step outside our bubble and truly see the talent waiting to be uncovered? By participating in this mentorship program, we're not just investing in others, we're challenging our own perspectives. The tension knitted into the air began to loosen, but Maria's heart beat wildly. She felt a rush of determination stemming from her past, and it fueled her inner dialogue. This was about more than a mentorship program, it was about reframing her whole identity and purpose. She no longer wanted to simply fit into a corporate schema, she aimed to forge one anew. The discussions were becoming animated, multiple angles being explored. She could see alliances forming, a new consensus bubbling to the surface. A collective agreement was forming this idea had merit. Yet, a part of her still hungered for something deeper, an acknowledgement of her struggle and unique journey. Maria took a moment, allowing vulnerability to seep into her voice. I once held a broom in my hands, and I often doubted where I belonged. But that broom was a tool not just for cleaning but for sweeping away self-doubt and clearing a path forward. I recognize that I'm not just advocating for a program, I am advocating for each story that could emerge from this. As her words settled, a weight shifted collectively around the boardroom. The CEO's gaze fixed on her, his brow furrowing as though grappling with a complex math equation. Maria, he replied, his tone somber, what you propose is compelling, but we need to understand which of our resources will back this initiative. Can we sustain it? Are we ready for the commitment? A fresh wave of unease rolled through her. This was a pivotal point. The stakes were shifting from ideological to practical. Would she be equipped to answer not only the what but the how? With the clock ticking and the room whispering with unrest, the reality of their reliance on metrics overshadowed her. What was she truly willing to fight for? Would she dig deeper to devise a sustainable plan that wouldn't just populate the program with numbers but transform lives through accessibility and communication? The moment thrummed with urgency as Maria recognized the challenge ahead. As the meeting shifted toward examining the finer details, her resolve strengthened. It was time to master not just the concept but the critical mechanics of implementation. Whatever course lay ahead, she vowed to tackle it head-on. The very thought rejuvenated her spirit, and for the first time that day, she felt as though her journey was not just paving the way for others but establishing her true place in this world. How could she entwine the past with a pragmatic plan to inspire real change? And more importantly, was she truly prepared for the challenge that awaited her in making this vision tangible? Months passed since Maria's first audacious meeting with the board. The tentative approval of her mentorship program served as a catalyst, igniting a fire within her. No longer merely scrubbing floors or worrying about Ethan's future, Maria now stood as the face of a transformative initiative, one that fused her lived experiences with action. Each day in the office became a tapestry of triumphs and challenges. Maria meticulously designed workshops, thrived in meetings with organizational leaders, and filtered feedback from community members into her proposal. She was no longer a janitor, she had emerged as a strategist, harnessing her insights to enact real change in her neighborhood. Her confidence solidified with every mentorship meeting. Maria watched as local youth stepped into their potential, encouraged by strategies she brought forth. Conversations evolved from simple interactions to meaningful connections, and with each success story, she demonstrated that true leadership stems from authenticity and radical empathy. A pivotal moment arrived when she was invited to present her initiative at a national corporate conference, a testament to her skill and growing reputation. Standing on the stage, her heart swelled with pride. What began as a vision nurtured in a diner evolved into a movement filled with hope, she proclaimed, his voice steady, enriched with the weight of her journey. Maria painted vivid images of success as young individuals who secured internships, others who excelled in academics, and even stories of parents who felt inspired to uplift their families, all ignited by a smattering of belief and opportunity. This was her moment, one she had never envisioned while rinsing away the remnants of corporate meetings and washed away doubts. Back in the boardroom, a shift took place. Executives who once raised eyebrows now leaned forward with curiosity, frequently engaging with her perspective, asking for insights on scaling the program nationally. Her position transformed from a peripheral participant to an integrated leader within the corporate ecosystem, demonstrating that her ideas saved lives, not just dollars. Months later, when she received the recognition of a Community Distinction Award, tears filled her eyes, not from fear or doubt, but from the exhilaration of accomplishment. Standing in front of friends and family, the late-night hustle no longer felt burdensome, but exhilarating. As she gazed at Ethan, his pride radiated through the room, carefully affixed on his mother, the woman who fought relentlessly to redefine their existence. She embraced the honor, her voice ringing through the venue as she proclaimed, "This is not just my achievement, it's a collective success for everyone who has dared to dream in spite of their circumstances." It was no longer just a job, but a shared legacy that she was building brick by brick in partnership with the community. Maria had succeeded in establishing herself not just in title but in spirit. The once unnoticed janitor, now director of a thriving community upliftment initiative, stood tall, a living testament to resilience and determination. Each step she took drew a distinct line between her past and present, and her journey became a compass for many others. As she walked off the stage, applause ringing in her ears, Maria realized that this journey was more than a professional achievement, it was personal fulfillment articulated through dedication and hard work. No longer would she be defined by her uniform, she had created her identity as a leader, a mentor, and an undeniable force for change. This culmination of experience catalyzed a profound transformation. The sense of belonging blossomed, and she understood that by nurturing her ambitions and urging those around her to pursue theirs, she had lit a path forward not just for herself, but for everyone she inspired along the way. Now, it is your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now to follow along on more incredible journeys of transformation. This is the moment to show your support, so leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find their story. Comment your thoughts and theories on Maria's journey, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this inspiring conclusion. Together, we can illuminate paths of hope for everyone.